Okay, Kay, I'll leave the stage to you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to CESAC Ping Talks. My name is Kay Zhang. My Chinese name is Zhang Niuyue, and I'm really happy to be the host for today's talk. I'll introduce myself really briefly. I am a graduate from Duke University. That is my alma mater. And then I took my MFA studies to University of Southern California, majoring in film productions. And now I work in the film industry. I work in Hollywood. And it is my absolute pleasure today to speak with Dr. Kwan. But first of all, let's take a look at CESAC and get to know what a great place this is. And yeah, Terry, take it away and tell us a little bit about CESAC and what we do here.
Sure, thank you, Kay. So CESAC stands for the Chinese American Engineers. Oh, am I not sharing my face? Sorry about that. So yeah, CESAC stands for the Chinese American Engineers and Scientists Association of Southern California. It was founded in 1962. And actually this year is our 60-year anniversary, and we just celebrated our annual convention earlier this year. CESAC strives to serve the Chinese American scientists and engineers community, and we host many events such as our annual convention, our technical symposium, business forum, tech salon. We also have programs such as the CESAC Scholarship and STEM Essay Contest to cultivate the next generation of the young leaders. We have distinguished speakers and awardees come to our conventions to give speeches and accept our awards, such as the Nobel laureates you see here, and other elite professionals like former Secretary of Transportation Elaine Chao, movie director Ang Lee, and actress Lisa Liu. So since 1984, CESAC's scholarship program has been running for almost 4 decades. We are glad that we are part of their journey to pursue their dreams. Many of our scholarship alumni have become respected experts in their fields, such as professors, doctors, investors, entrepreneurs, executives, directors, managers in tech and finance firms, and many more, accountants, government officials, you name it. We just hope to leverage CESAC's excellent network of scholarship awardee to better serve the community, which is why we started the Ping Talk series this year. The Ping Talk series stands for Profession Insights for Next Generation Talks, and we are inviting seasoned professionals from various backgrounds to share their personal stories as well as their insights of the current trends in their fields with us. Each session will be about like 1 hour in length, and we will start and chat about 15, 20, 25 minutes, and then we will spend the major part of the session taking questions from the audience. During the talk, please feel free to type your questions in the chat box and we'll get to them at the Q&A session. Yep, that's all I have. I'll give it back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Terry. And yeah, you might wonder, what are we doing here having a talk about dance and performance with a scholar in dance and performance, and myself work in the film industry with a scholarship that awards scientists. But in fact, CESAC is right now branching out into different areas and different disciplines of studies. And in fact, I'm a recipient of the Lisa Liu Foundation Fund, and Miss Lisa Liu is a prestigious actor who starred in Crazy Rich Asian. So with her involvement, we're now actually taking our involvement and attention to other fields as well, including arts, performance, film, photography, all kinds of things that you can imagine. So it is my absolute pleasure and honor to introduce our guest today, Dr. SanSan Kwan. So allow me to introduce her a little bit. Dr. Kwan is professor now. That's a news that we're gonna release here. Yay! Yes, Dr. Kwan is now no longer associate professor. She is a professor and chair in the Department of Theater, Dance, and Performance Studies in UC Berkeley. Her research interest includes dance studies and Asian American studies. Dr. Kwan is a recipient of CESAC scholarship in 1991, but her involvement with CESAC CESAC actually goes way back. Her grandfather was an active CESAC member, and her mother was a former CESAC president. So Dr. Kwan's recent book, Terry, can we take it to the next one? Yes, here we go. Love Dances, Lost and Mourning in Intercultural Collaboration is the winner of the 2022 de la Torre Bueno Award. She's also the author of Kinesthetic City, this middle one here, Dance and Movement in Chinese Urban Spaces, and co-editor of Mixing It Up, Multiracial Subjects. Her articles in Cartographies of Race and the Chop Suey Circuit, a group of Asian American cabaret entertainers who toured the nation during the World War II era, is published in DTR. And her article, When is Contemporary Dance? On contended understanding on terms of contemporary across dance genres and communities, is in the December 2017 issue of Dance Research Journal. So yeah, here you can see images of Dr. Kwan's work as both as a dance practitioner, as a dance performer, as well as a scholar and a theorist. So yeah, what an honor to have you, and what an honor to be exposed to such a great volume of your work. So yeah, Dr. Kwan, say hi.
Hey everyone, it's nice to see so many people here, and thanks of course to Terry and to Kay and to Jinqing for organizing these fabulous events and inviting me to be part of it.
Yeah, thank you so much. It is our honor to host you. So first of all, can you start off by telling us a little bit about your background, your education? How did you get into where you're getting into right now?
Sure. I grew up in Southern California. As you mentioned, my mother was a past president of CESAC. I grew up dancing a lot of ballet just as an extracurricular activity when I was in elementary school all the way through high school, and then sort of imagined that my dance life was would terminate at the end of high school, but then I went to UC Berkeley and discovered another form outside of what I had been practicing, which was ballet. I had been only doing ballet up through high school and didn't realize that there was another world out there. And the dance department at UC Berkeley introduced me to modern dance, or what we would now call contemporary dance. And it was hugely liberating for me because I realized that modern dance was a place that accepted all kinds of bodies, and was a freer, more expressive form. So I was really excited to embrace a shift to modern dance. Along the way, I majored in English at UC Berkeley, and then when I graduated, I decided to go for it and move to New York and see what it would be like to pursue a career in dance in New York. I did that for a few years, and then was really feeling like my interests in academia and my interest in cultural analysis was not being fed by merely, quote unquote, having a dance career as a performer. So I discovered this field called performance studies. And if it hadn't been for the field of performance studies, I don't know that I necessarily would have pursued academia, but performance studies was this perfect marriage for me of my interests in performance and in analysis and in theoretical work, because performance studies is a field in which we look at performance broadly conceived, and imagine the ways in which, or analyze the ways in which performance makes meaning in the world. What kind of social and cultural messages can it tell us, and in what ways can performance itself actually not just be shaped or reflected, not be just reflective of culture and social life, but also the ways in which performance can in fact shape and have an influence over our sociocultural world. So anyway, I went on to graduate school in performance studies, but I maintained a performance career as a dancer, and did those things kind of in parallel, in a sort of along parallel paths, and then finished my degree, got my PhD, went on to teach at Cal State Los Angeles in theater and dance and performance studies, and then got a job at UC Berkeley, started teaching here, kind of rebooted my active performance career. I had given up actually performing for about 10 years in order to, finish my degree, start my life as an assistant professor, raise my family. And then it wasn't until my early 40s that I started dancing again.
Wow.
And now I am back to dancing more fully, in addition to maintaining my scholarly profile.
I realize you use the word parallel, and that's such a luxury for a lot of people, because you manage to have the parallel life between, as a scholar, as someone in academia, and also as an artist yourself. So you have the perfect amount of balance. So we're curious here about what's a typical day like for you? How do you dance in between that kind of balance and that parallel life? What's the day-to-day for you like?
Yeah, thank you for noticing that I use that term, Kay. And I do want to emphasize that that I am particularly privileged to be able to pursue these two paths, which obviously intersect and are mutually influential, and at the same time, it is not easy, and most people don't get to for a living pursue a creative life and an intellectual one. So it's definitely an unusual path that I've carved out for myself, and I didn't carve it out, I have to say, intentionally. I think a lot of times young people, so speaking to you all out there, and of course I speak to young college students all the time, young people imagine that they can map out a linear journey and then just take it one step at a time along that anticipated linear journey. And in fact, I think those of us who are in our middle-aged years would go back and tell you that you can't plot out your path in such a linear anticipated fashion, that so much is serendipity, and so much is just pursuing what organically feels right at the moment, and you can't always plot it all out. So anyway, with that being said, you asked me what my typical day is like. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have any typical days, but I do shuttle during the day between my work, working at the theoretical level, with undergraduate and graduate students, teaching classes, reading and writing, meeting with students in office hours to talk about their papers or their research, stepping into a classroom with a PowerPoint and lecture notes, and working with large classes of over 100 students, and then small graduate seminars of 5 or 6, and then literally within that day I might also then need to head over to the studio on campus and either teach a dance class or run a rehearsal, or will have to myself hop in the car and drive across the bridge into San Francisco for my own rehearsal, if we're working on a show at any given point. So yeah, it's really a lot of shuttling back and forth.
That is so exciting. That's almost a dream life for me, not for everyone. But yeah, I really admire that kind of lifestyle. So we're going into such depth. I'm kind of like not even on track with my list of questions, but let's just swing it. I love it. So we're talking about academics, and we're going to talk about dance and performance, and like you as a performer who has a relationship with the audiences. But first, as a scholar who has relationships with, articles, students, the university, institutions, how do you feel like writing and research in your specific area is like? Because, in arts and humanities, there's nothing like we're building a rocket, like we're building it's not like rocket science where there's an absolute right. There's no right and wrong. But what is specifically writing in dance and performance like for you?
Sure. I hope I can answer this question.
Yeah,
I do know that, the STEM fields research is highly collaborative. Right, so you have a lab, and you're working with a whole bunch of graduate students, and the work that you develop, the research that you develop, is highly dependent upon what everyone in the team is figuring out, and then papers are co-published. Right, in the humanities, we work solo. For the most part, sometimes we do collaboration, but it's unusual. And the ways in which the ways in which we are evaluated for things like promotion and review is via the genre of the single monograph. In other words, a book that you write that's solo authored. So that's the difference between scholarship in the humanities and scholarship in STEM. So for me, it's usually thinking about an idea or a question I might have. So for example, just to ground it in something, my last book called Love Dances, Lawson, Mourning and Intercultural Collaboration. I think the question that I was sitting with was, how do we collaborate across culture? And the reason that that question arose for me is because I went to a performance. It was a duet between a French avant-garde choreographer and a Thai classical dancer. And they were trying to create a piece together coming from very different cultural backgrounds, but also very different aesthetic traditions, right? One was doing contemporary Western dance, and one was doing Thai classical dance. And so the question was, how are we going to work together and create something? So it started out as a question about a particular piece, but it became a larger question about intercultural collaboration more generally. How do people work together across difference? So that's kind of what becomes the germ of a research project. And then I do a lot of reading around. I read a lot of other people's thoughts on intercultural collaboration. I read up on, what is Thai classical dance? What is Western contemporary dance? What can I know about these artists, so that I'm grounding my questions about intercultural collaboration in something specific, but then, aiming to make a larger argument that has relevance beyond just that piece. And then the book collects a bunch of different duets with dancers who are coming from different backgrounds as kind of models for thinking again about intercultural collaboration and the different ways in which it works or it fails, or what we can learn from people trying and failing and trying and failing and trying to work together across difference.
Yeah. Wow, that's such valuable tips. I hope people are taking notes. I really wish that I've heard about this when I was in freshman year, sophomore year, writing articles in like humanities, because like I had great professors and great programs for sure. But I really didn't know what writing in humanities was like. Well, I guess it pins down to like, you need to anchor your essay into a question and then find interdisciplinary like inspirations, like what is this question like seen in social studies? What is it like seen in history? And but we're not gonna go into that much depth for today. Let's talk about dance. Let's talk about performance. Tell us, what was the most exciting dance or performance that you've directed, choreographed, or led, either for you or with your students? What was it like?
I can talk about a dance that is most immediately on my mind because we are restaging it right now. But So for those of you who came in to this Zoom room early, you might have seen some clips of a dance piece that I worked on with the dance company called Lenora Lee Dance. Lenora Lee is the artistic director, and I was a dancer in this piece. We created it in 2017, restaged it in 2019, and we're now staging it on my students at UC Berkeley. And so that's been really interesting. But the piece is an imaginative staging of the experiences of Chinese American immigrants to Angel Island in the early part of the 20th century. So if those of you may know the history of Angel Island, but it's where Chinese folks who were attempting to migrate from China into the United States were detained in the early part of the 20th century before they were allowed to land in San Francisco. Many of them were not allowed to land. They were interrogated at the detention center, and in some cases detained for several months, and in some cases years. So the immigration station still exists as a museum now on Angel Island. And many of the detainees who were there in the early part of the 20th century actually inscribed poems in the walls about their experiences in detention. So we decided as a dance company to imaginatively stage what it would have been like to be one of those detainees. And we did the piece, we created the piece on site at the immigration station, and audiences were invited to move around with us in the rooms, in the barracks, in the shower areas, as we kind of restage this moment in history. So we did that in 2017. It was a fabulous experience. It gained some awards. We did it again in 2019, and now we are staging it on the undergraduate students at UC Berkeley. We're not staging it on site on Angel Island, but we're doing it on a stage on campus. But it's been a really great experience. Sort of transmitting this history and this piece to undergraduates.
Wow, that's so wonderful. There's so many things it's just popping in my head. First question, is there going to be stage building like for the students? Is there going to are they going to build the actual rooms and cells and things like that?
Yeah, that is a fabulous question. And it was definitely, something that we had to think about because, again, the piece was site specific and it was in the immigration station. So we had the actual site. And so, yes, we are trying to, in creative ways, recreate that sense of those rooms and those spaces and that building, mostly through some like actual hard material sets and then also through video design.
Ah, great. Get it all like multi-platform,
Definitely multimedia. Yes.
Multimedia. Yeah. It actually reminds me of an opera that I recently get to know too. I don't know if you've heard about it. It's called On Gold Mountain. About Lisa C. And there was an opera that's dedicated to this, and it was written by Nathan Wan, and I happened to know him in person and was able to see not the actual show, I wasn't able to make it, but like a sneak peek of it in the Huntington Libraries in Los Angeles. Absolutely beautiful. So really, really love and champion and celebrate, Chinese Americans reclaiming our history, reclaiming the story of how we got here and what it was like to be Chinese American 1 century, 2 centuries ago through all kinds of art forms, through opera, music, writing, dancing, and film, hopefully. I got to do that. Yes. That's really wonderful. And what's the timeline like? When is the dance going to release in Berkeley?
Yeah, so we're gonna premiere it in mid-February on the UC Berkeley campus. So if you're in the Bay Area,
everyone should go see it. Cool. And let's talk about future. Let's talk about like industry, big questions, big steps. as someone who's in this space for years as a scholar and as a performer, what do you see the trend is like in dance and performance, both in academia and itself as an industry, like both in the scholarly world and in the business world, so to speak? Yeah. And also, like, what do you see the future of it be like? With COVID, everything has changed up, shaken up so much. And I don't know, like, if everyone is getting into I really want to see everything space, or if people are getting into like, I could just watch it online, that kind of space. Yeah. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I think I see, I think there are two trends that I would identify. One is a greater appetite for greater diversity in the dance world. And that's both in terms of scholarship that's happening and in terms of practice. So just an opening up of the field for what is interesting to see on stages. So I think there was a real privileging and predominance of ballet and modern dance. But now, people are much more interested in seeing a multiplicity of forms. So hip hop, but also lots of non-Western dance forms are gaining traction, gaining interest. And even the ballet world is starting to open up so that we don't just see white bodies on stage. There's much more interest in seeing different kinds of bodies, BIPOC folks, dancing even in ballet, but again, a widening of even the genres that quote unquote count. So that's been lovely to see. And then also in dance scholarship, for a long time, dance scholars, dance historians were looking only at Western concert dance. So they were looking at ballets and they were looking at modern dance. But now people are interested in looking at salsa, and they're interested in looking at booty and hip hop. And so again, a broadening of interests in the kinds of forms that count to be written about as well. And then the other trend I'm seeing is, as you've identified, Kay, like what happens to the world of performance, the industry of performance post-COVID. And I would say in the dance world, it's a greater move towards screen dance. So TikTok and YouTube certainly have helped catapult that even before COVID. But post-COVID, during the period of COVID, all of us dancers had nothing to do, right? We were not, all of the performance gigs that we had just dried up. But we turned to video, we turned to film, we turned to online work. And so you were seeing a lot of people, streaming dances from their living room or whatever. But that was not just a temporary move. I think more and more, and I think that if you're a student of dance, more and more, we're thinking about this in my dance department. We want to give our dancers some training in the medium of film. How to film, how to edit, how to do all of that technical work, because more and more I think we're going to start seeing dance on the screen.
Yeah, everyone go out and go watch a dance and performance this weekend. Let's do that. Yeah. I'm a very like going to events every chance, every opportunity I have kind of person. And I think it's such a especially like gathering for events, gathering for dance, performance, theater, whatever it is, it's such a it's what makes us human. It's the shared experience and the shared aesthetics and the engagement that makes us who we are, as opposed to AI. Oh, I think are we seeing questions? We see people raising hands. Yeah, we're gonna open it up really quickly. But I have one last question, and I think this one is also something I believe students in our audiences would like to ask about. Is I think they will be feeling like it takes a lot of courage to be an artist, student, and scholar, as well as having a career in art. And I assume as a department chair, you talk to so many students on a daily basis about like deciding to major in art or minor in art. What is your advice on that? And I assume you have this talk a lot. So yeah, please inspire us.
Oh, I'm afraid I'm not going to have anything inspiring to say in answer to this question.
Anything else?
It is hard.
Yes.
It is hard. You are not going to make a lot of money. You're just not. I mean, there's no bones about it. You're not going to make a lot of money. Again, I have been so extremely lucky because I pursued this parallel path.
Yes.
It meant that that I got a tenure track job, which gives me a sustainable income. But if you pursue a life of just the arts, it is harder. You have to piece it together. You will have to do odd jobs. You will have to have several jobs. You know, in my mind, but I'm speaking from a place where, you know, I made it there. In my mind, it's worth it.
Yeah.
In my mind, I can't imagine doing anything else. In my mind, I feel like I'm making a contribution that counts. But I'm also an educator, so that helps me to feel good about the contribution I'm making. But yeah, I'm unfortunately not gonna lie. It has to be something you really want to do. Okay, but I'm going to say one more thing, and that is that when I moved to New York at age 22 and decided like I'm going to pursue a career of dance, I had a misunderstanding about what I thought a successful career was. And that is that I thought that a successful career meant that in 2 years, I was going to be dancing with Alvin Ailey or Martha Graham or Mark Morris or whatever. That was very naive. First of all, it takes a lot longer than 2 years.
Yeah.
And second of all, my measurement of success was naive. What I understand now is that it's about staying power and it's about stick-to-itiveness, right? So what counts as a successful career in dance is not necessarily that you're dancing for Alvin Ailey or Martha Graham or Mark Morris. It means that you are doing the work with independent choreographers, with small dance companies. You're picking up one gig here, another gig there. But if you're sticking with it and you have the staying power, then that is a successful career in dance. And I think the same can be said about acting or music or whatever, right? Like we can all aim to be Brad Pitt, right? But most actors are not Brad Pitt, right? Most actors are just getting work steadily. And that's what counts. And it takes a lot more than 2 years.
Yeah. Wow. Well said. Very inspiring. I'm gonna face that question day to day in my future career. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I see questions. So let's open it up. Okay. We have a student here named you. For a second, I was like, you. Is that me? Like you. Hi, you.
Hi, you are able to unmute yourself right now.
Okay, first of all, I'm not really a student anymore. Just a very brief introduction about myself. I'm an engineer, work for JPL. So my husband works for JPL and the Caltech faculty as well. So I do have a question to Professor Wang. The question is, when you grow up as a kid with a passion of dance, did you ever get any resistance from your parents? And basically trying to telling you you have to work like multiple jobs in order to have a good life, this type of thing. And what would you advise to a 5 years old girl who loves dance and math at the same time? Thank you so much for your time.
Sure. I would say that a 5-year-old still has so much time to discover what his or her passion is. So if they love dancing and they love math, they should be allowed to pursue that to whatever degree and to whatever point they want. Because who knows what they're going to love at age 15 or at age 25. Lots of things change between age 5 and adulthood. But in terms of whether I experienced resistance from my parents, no. I mean, I think my parents wanted me to pursue dance because they understood it to be an extracurricular activity that I was doing as a kid, and that eventually, of course, I'd land on a regular, normal, quote unquote, normal job. And that's what I thought as well. And it wasn't, again, until after my 4 years in college that I thought, well, I'm going to just give this dance thing a try. And again, didn't think that it was necessarily going to be my lifelong career. And again, one thing leads to another. It's not a path that I could have plotted out for myself at age 5 or at age 15 or even at age 25. It didn't really start to solidify till after that. But I say, you know, as a parent myself, like when your kid has a passion, that is so great. And that passion should be supported as much as possible, because I think it's really important for that kid's sense of self and that kid's self-confidence, because, you know, they might not become a dancer as a lifelong career, but if that's something that they love, then there's nothing that's going to hurt them to do it.
I have
Thank
a
you.
follow. Thank you. Thank you so much. Wonderful answer. I have a follow-up question. What was your New York days like, and were your parents supportive of your New York days?
I mean, I'll be honest, I took the LSATs too, but
I love that.
yeah, they were supportive. You know, I had a little apartment in the West Village, and I was teaching Kaplan SAT prep classes, and
Yeah, me too.
I was working in an office, you know, but that's what any 22-year-old would do when they graduate from college anyway. Like, you know,
Yeah.
they're, I don't know, unless they get some fancy internship at Google or whatever, you know, I just wanted to live in New York and try it out. So I lived in New York. I lived in a tiny apartment with a roommate, and I worked in an office, and I taught Kaplan classes, and I made it work. So I think my parents were just biding their time till I figured it out.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I'm not a parent, but I'm blessed to have parents who really allows the possibility of a non-linear, you know, path, because it's gonna be boring if it's so linear and clear, and like there's a clear ladder. And I think the beauty, like you said, serendipity, it lies in the serendipity, it lies in the discovery, lies in your interaction with the places that you go and the answers that you get throughout these journeys. Cool. Any more questions we have from the audiences?
Well, I have a question.
Please.
Yeah, so I have two daughters. One is more interested in math, one is more interested in, you know, music, piano stuff. So, you know, it's really fantastic to see like how kids are different, right? Some of them are more into like art, some are like more logistic, more into logic. So, I want to understand, like, because I am an engineer myself, but I want to understand more like how like getting into art can help a kid grow, right? How can they benefit from that in the long run, or what do that mean for them to get exposure to art?
I love what you said about how beautiful it is to see two different kids with different sets of interests, different perspectives in the world, different ways of being in the world. And I really appreciate your question about in what way does an interest in the arts enhance a human being? And you know, I'm going to tell you that what it does is it allows. So I think what art does for audience members is train our empathy muscles, right? It allows us to imagine what it's like to be in another person's experience, what it's like to imagine other kinds of experiences beyond one's own. It cultivates a sense of of humanity. It cultivates a sense of futurity and imagination, things that are beyond the realm of the immediate and the rational. It cultivates a place for self-expression. It can be a place of joy, of elation. It can imagine worlds that give us hope. It can also be a place where we can express our grief, our anger, our frustration. It can show us the world as it is, as it should be, and it can also cultivate a space of potentiality that isn't about a yes or a no, a good or a bad. It's as you say, it's like it's a space beyond logic. There's of course a place for logic and a place for truth and a place for certainty, and a place for facts. But there also, I think what art does is create spaces that are beyond the articulable in that kind of way.
That's so beautiful. It's like a poetry that you're actually writing right now. Yeah, I want to add on to that, but obviously not as, polished as what you said. I feel like art makes us human beings. It's literally what makes us human. Just imagine the first time that you stepped into a cinema or like into a concert after COVID, after the shutdown. The first time you were able to, look at something artistic and aesthetical with a group of people after a long time of not doing it. That's when you realize that, wow, this is such a beautiful experience, such an exciting thing to do. And I think, am I so connected? Oh, sorry. I thought my Wi-Fi was frozen. Yeah, I think that shared experience and that shared memory is what connect us as humans, is makes us more real, so that in our 40s and 50s, we don't like wake up and be like, oh, what have we been doing with our lives, making money. Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you for the lovely answer. Any more questions? Okay, we have Madeline who has a question.
Yes. Hi, Professor Kwan. So nice to hear you talk about your experiences. What a privilege. My question is for students who have had substantive dance experience, and let's say they don't intend to go into dance as a lifelong career. What other options can they look at? In your case, you found education, right? Which is beautiful. I see tremendous amount of synergy there. But what other careers have students explored, and how would you advise, your students who are very interested in dance, maybe for the creativity, for the self-expression, but also want to pursue some other, like, let's call it more practical careers?
That's a fabulous question. Thank you for it. I will say, first of all, that the dance program where I work is not a conservatory style program. It's not a BFA. So we very much invite all different kinds of movers who are coming into our spaces for all different kinds of reasons, whether it's recreational or they're pursuing a professional career. So we want the people who are double majoring in molecular biology and dance. But for the person who is highly skilled and has been working really hard at dance, but maybe also wants to think about how the knowledge that they've built as movers can translate into something other than a performing career or a creative career. Yeah, that's a fabulous question. I know a lot of folks who go into things like physical therapy or any of the kind of somatic or physical medical fields. So doctors, orthopedics, people who also go into even kind of psychotherapy, but using somatics as a base. Again, chiropractic, osteopathy, and physical therapy. Those are some places. But then also, if you're kind of a more analytic person, then people go into arts administration, working as a curator or working for a theater or for a dance company or for a grants funding organization, a nonprofit, writing grants, doing marketing, doing other kinds of administrative work, being on a board, being an executive director. So there's a lot of different pathways.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madeline, for the question. Do we have more questions for Dr. Kwan?
I have one that was sent to me as a direct message in the chat.
Please, please.
And the question is, what is the most important thing in my life?
I love these big questions.
That's a big question.
I know.
I mean, obviously, if you're a parent, you know what the answer is. The most important thing in my life are my children.
Yeah.
And I'll just share a bit about my children. My older kid will probably pursue a life in academia, probably in the humanities, probably having to do with writing. There are so many ways in which we don't think that we're influencing our kids or putting them on a path, but I think we model so much for them, even subconsciously. They're just surrounded by it. And so my kids have grown up seeing me as a professor, and they live, 5 minutes from the UC Berkeley campus. And so that's the world and the reality that they have absorbed. And so I think that's probably the path my kid's going to go down. And then my younger kid, I'm not too sure yet. But he's definitely more of a humanities, social science person than a STEM person. But my parents were STEM, so.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow. My parents were humanities people, but were coded with STEM careers.
Same.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We're almost okay. Any more questions? I have one. Please prescribe us, please recommend 3, dance shows, performances, theaters that you think is worth watching right now that's like in the market, either Bay Area or like where we could catch them. Any recommendations?
Okay. Well, you may have just missed it if you're in the Bay Area, but Cloud Gate Dance Theater, Yunmen, from Taiwan, just came through the Bay Area. They were at UC Berkeley and they were at Stanford. They're a fabulous contemporary dance company from Taiwan, and their dancers are truly phenomenal. And they make these big, epic, highly visual, beautiful works. So the next time they come through wherever you are,
Cloud Gate.
Okay,
we'll check it.
Yunmen. So that's one recommendation.
Yeah.
It looks like, yeah.
We got questions popping up. We can circle back to this. Yes, I think Yasmin first. Yasmin, please go ahead.
Hi. Can I speak Mandarin? Do you mind I speak Mandarin to ask?
Dr. Kwan.
Go ahead. And if I don't understand, I'll ask someone to translate for me.
Okay, thank you. So, I watched the Cloud Gate a couple days ago in Irvine area, the Search Storm Theater. So, 我的问题是说，这也是我第一次在看这样的一种就是云门舞集的表演。它里面会有很多结合声音的部分，很多吟唱的部分。然后我想知道说， 这会不会是未来就是 contemporary dance 的一个趋势，或者是一种主要的变成一种主要的形式？因为之前可能我也可能是我个人的接触有限，更多的是 contemporary dance 就只是 body 的 expression， 但是这个云门舞集的表演，它的声音的进入成为一个特别重要的部分。所以这是我很感兴趣，就是想要去咨询一下的一个问题。谢谢。
Yeah, so if I understand that correctly, the question is about the music and how the music was really important to the piece, but what yeah.
It's more like the thing, the part of they are singing, the voice.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's,
right.
How like
Yeah.
the vocal part, how like the vocal part has become like a incorporated, essential part incorporated into the dance itself. And like, how do you see this trend moving forward?
Yeah. Okay. So that was great that you noticed that, Yasmin. And yes, that was quite unique. I would say that's novel. So yeah, I mean, certainly in traditional ballet, you don't hear the dancer's voice at all, but even in contemporary dance, the use of the voice is unusual. It happens sometimes, but this piece was particularly novel for the way in which these dancers vocalized. And I thought it was amazing. Like it was very virtuosic because they were loud and they were really vocalizing gutturally, you know, from the diaphragm. And then they were also singing. And I don't know if they were mic'd or not, but where I saw it, but it was amazing whether or not they were mic'd, how powerful their voices were. And yes, that was very unusual.
Yes, so 这会是未来就是 contemporary dance 的一种趋势吗？还是说这还是一个比较少数派的选择或者小众的选择？
Yeah, not a normal thing.
It's a niche.
Okay. Yeah. 因为我注意到在洛杉矶区域有另外一个 studio 叫Ballet Red， 我不知道您是否知道这个 studio。
What's it called?
Ballet Red.
Ballet Red?
Yes. 我觉得可能在洛杉矶北区那个地方，然后就是一个他们好像跟 Joffrey School 一直有合作，就 Joffrey 在洛杉矶的 camp 都是在他们那边办。然后我有注意到他们这个月有一场 recital， 然后也是会有声音的部分。所以我刚刚好有看到云门舞集，所以我就会想说，哇，这么就是为什么大家现在都在选择声音和身体的这样一种结合？对。
Yeah, maybe it's a trend, but for me it was unusual, and I haven't heard of Ballet Red before. So
yeah, Jasmine,
thank you.
Please type in that information about the dance that you talked about. 可以
OK，
大家可以打在那个 chat 里面，我们可以让大家了解。And Annie, you had a question? I think this will be your last one.
So I came late, but I have a question. So I've been dancing for a few years now, and when I was small, I think I would definitely like do professional dance. However, now I grew older and I'm like a freshman in high school. Now that I think about it, I'm really interested in psychology. But I still want to stay in touch with dance. So how do you like deal with two at the same time? Like, what's your experience with it?
I think that you are young enough that you can do both, that you can take dance classes after school and on the weekends, and continue to pursue your schoolwork. And even when you get to college, there will be room for you to perhaps major in psychology and maybe even double major in dance. And if you don't feel like you can double major, then you can certainly do your major in psychology and take all of your academic classes and continue to dance in the dance studio and be in performances. Most of my students at college are, obviously pursuing their academics and majoring in all different kinds of departments, different kinds of fields, and taking the time to take class and go to rehearsals and be in performances. And you definitely can pursue both of those things at the same time. It's like someone pursuing a sport, they do soccer on the the weekends and the after school, and get their schoolwork done too.
And Dr. Kwan, you spoke about somatic therapies earlier. I don't know if that's like too much information for Annie, but yeah, like if you could like introduce somatic to her, I think that's like a beautiful, beautiful combination and like practices of where dance could be in touch with like therapy and things like that, right?
Yeah, that's a really great point, Kay. Yeah, so somatic therapies, Annie, are ways in which people try to help heal the psyche via physical practices. So meditation, yoga, qigong, other kinds of physical practices that are meant to be about the health and well-being of the body and the mind as a singular entity, rather than as two things that are separate from one another.
Yeah.
So if you become a really good dancer and you're also really interested in psychology, then the perfect marriage is to think about a kind of somatic therapy.
Yes.
I also take a look at some like movement therapy because I kind of like want to do that too. So
That's
I'm
wonderful.
already thinking about it.
That's a great idea.
Are you located in Bay Area, Annie?
No, I'm located in California.
Oh, okay. Well, if anywhere, California is the best place. It's like the hub of, all kinds of art therapies. It's really, really booming. So great time to be interested in both of these. Great. That's a really, really wonderful experience that we shared with you, Dr. Kwan, and we're honored to have your presence to inspire so many of us. Terry, do you wanna bring it back to Dr. Kwan's videos, or?
Oh yeah. So before that, let me share my screen. So I would like to thank everyone for attending this event. It's the second session of the Pink Talks event we just started this year, and we will be having more events coming up. If you're interested in STEAM-related seminars, we have Dr. Jonathan's seminar next Saturday talking about why stars are suns, about astronomy. And for as the Pink Talks, if you're interested in, we started in Pink Talks as to give inspiration to people, give information to people to understand their interests and explore their interests, understanding what each profession is like. So the first 4 sessions, you can find videos of our first session online. This is our second one. The first one is about math. Second one is about dancing and art. Third one is about economics, and the last one is about artificial intelligence and machine learning. So the third session of the Pink Talks will be on in 2 weeks, also on Saturday at 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. And we have another CESASC scholarship awardee coming to tell us what applied economics is like and how are they doing researches nowadays. So if you're interested, do keep that in mind and follow us on our social media. I'll show a little bit later. But yeah, if you're interested, don't miss the 2 events that we are coming up. And another point I want to make is that this is our first season of the 4 sessions, but starting next week, we're going to host more of the Pink Talks, inviting more speakers to come and talk about their professions, the trends in the fields and everything. So the speakers that we invite really depends on the feedback we get from you. So I just put a link in the chat. So there was a Google form link. If you're interested, do go in there and tell us what you're interested in. We're going to invite the speakers of the next season accordingly. Yeah. So I'm putting that. Oh, and also, if you're I would like to also to know that CESASC is a nonprofit organization and our team are all unpaid volunteers. We couldn't have come so far without our generous institute and individual sponsors. If you're interested in donating to CESASC, whether to CESASC itself to make these events possible, or to the CESASC scholarship program, where you can support the student and be part of their journey to become to pursue their dreams, do let us know, and you can contact me at my email address here is terry.guochenxi@gmail.com. So that's about what I have, and this is our social media page. You can find our YouTube channel. You can find it's youtube.com/@CESAC1962, or you can follow our WeChat channel called CESAC Media. You can scan this QR code, which is on the first page as we come in. It was the WeChat group chat we created. We're going to post more events, Pink Talks events in there, and our website is CESAC.org. But before we leave there, I really would like to thank Dr. Kwan for showing up here. Basically, it's like coming back to the CESAC community and introducing like what your experiences are like for the past years and inspire the new kids. Our theme for our 60th annual convention was really like carry on the legacy and inspiring the new kids to inspire the new generation. And I think what you're doing, or basically what you're doing, what your parents are, what your grandparents have been doing, those are really how our Chinese community has like staying prosper and getting better and better, and all the new generations living their lives to the fullest. So thank you so much for coming, and thank you, Kay, for being a great host. Yeah. So yeah, that's all I have.
Yeah, everyone unmute and give Dr. Kwan a shout out. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much. I will be playing another 10 minutes clip of Dr. Kwan's performance at the end of the event. You can stay and watch. And I've also included the 2 links of the 2 performance videos that we shared in this seminar from Dr. Kwan. So yeah, enjoy.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Dr. Kwan.
All right. Have a great weekend.